There is a particular kind of fear that only happens in your own bed. Not in a forest, not on a dark road, not in a building you've never been in before. In your own room. Under your own blankets. Next to the person you trust most in the world. That kind of fear doesn't announce itself. It arrives slowly in small wrong details, and by the time you understand what's happening, you can't move and you can't speak, and the person sleeping beside you might as well be 1,000 miles away. The accounts in tonight's stories come from ordinary homes in the American Midwest. Normal houses on normal streets. People who went to bed the same way they always did and woke up, if they slept at all, permanently changed by what happened in the hours between. Now put on your headphones, tonight, as 5 stories are the kind you do and forget by morning. If something like this has ever happened to you, or to someone you know, and you've then never had anyone to tell it to, share it in the comments. Some stories deserve to be heard. Story 1. It started with the bed. She told me she almost didn't say anything because she thought people would think she was losing her mind. Andrea was 34, worked as a dental hygienist in a mid-sized town outside of Columbus, Ohio. Practical woman. She had a whiteboard calendar on the refrigerator and a label maker she used for the pantry, and a specific brand of coffee she bought in bulk because she didn't like running out of things. She and her husband Dave had been in their house for 6 years, a 1970s split level on a quiet street. Good bones, needed work, the kind of house you grow into. They had a 7-year-old daughter who slept down the hall and a dog named Biscuit who slept at the foot of their bed every night without fail. She wants that detail noted. The dog. Because of what happened later. It started in October of 2022, which she remembers specifically because she just switched to a night shift at the dental office, covering a colleague on maternity leave. And her sleep schedule was fractured and strange, and she was already existing in that half-world of someone who has never quite rested. She told herself that's why things seemed slightly off. She told herself that for a long time. The first night, she woke at 3 a.m. for no reason she could identify. No sound, no dream she remembered. She just opened her eyes and was immediately awake in a way that felt wrong, like something had switched her on. The room was dark. Dave was breathing beside her. Biscuit was at the foot of the bed, the familiar warm weight of him against her feet. Except Biscuit was in the doorway. She could see him there, standing in the doorway looking into the room, not moving, ears up. She looked down at her feet. Nothing there. She looked back at the doorway. Biscuit standing, stiff, staring at the space beside the bed. She reached over and turned on her lamp. Biscuit, startled, looked at her, then padded over and jumped up and lay down at her feet like nothing had happened. Dave didn't wake. She sat there for a moment, lamp on, and looked at the space on her side of the bed that the dog had been staring at. Nothing there. Carpet, knit stand, her phone charger. She turned the lamp off and eventually went back to sleep, and in the morning she didn't mention it. There are more accounts like this one. Stay with me. The second night, same time. 3 a.m. Eyes open, completely awake. This time she lay still and waited. The room was the same. Dave breathing. And then she felt the bed move. Not the mattress shifting the way it does when someone rolls over. A specific movement, localized, like pressure being applied to the edge of the mattress on her side near her feet, slow and deliberate, like something sitting down on the edge. She did not move. She lay there and breathed and told herself the mattress was old and did this. Told herself it was settling. Told herself she was still half asleep and her perception was wrong. The pressure moved, slowly, up the side of the mattress, toward her. She reached over and grabbed Dave's arm. He made a sleep sound and didn't wake. She grabbed harder. He surfaced, groggy, asked what was wrong. She turned the lamp on. The room was empty. The bed was still. Biscuit was in the doorway again, staring. She told Dave she'd had a bad dream. He went back to sleep in under 2 minutes. She did not sleep again that night. The third night she felt a breeze. The windows were closed. She knew they were closed because she had checked them before bed. She always checked them. It was part of her routine, part of the label maker whiteboard calendar version of herself that needed things in order. The windows were closed and the room was still, and at 3:06 a.m., she felt a breeze move across the left side of her face. Cold, directional, like someone had leaned close and exhaled. She did not move. She did not reach for Dave. She lay there with her eyes open in the dark, and the cold air moved across her face, and she thought, and this is the part she finds hardest to say out loud, she thought, it's right next to me. Whatever it is, it's right there. And then something grabbed her ankle. Not touched, not brushed, grabbed. A hand. She said it felt exactly like a hand, fingers in a palm, cold and firm, closed around her ankle and pulled. Not hard enough to move her, but enough that there was no question about what it was. She opened her mouth to scream and nothing came out. She lay there paralyzed, and the grip stayed, and Dave slept, and Biscuit stood frozen in the doorway, and the room was completely silent, and she could not make a sound and could not move, and the hand held her ankle for what she believes was about 30 seconds before it released. She lay there until the sun came up. She has not told her daughter. She still lives in the house. She told me that the thing she keeps returning to, the question she can't leave alone, is the dog. Biscuit sleeps at her feet every night, has since they got him. That first night, whatever made him move to the doorway and stand there staring, he felt it before she did, which means it was already in the room. It was already standing beside the bed while she slept. It was there before she woke up. It had been there the whole time. She doesn't know how many nights before that. She doesn't know if she wants to.
Next story.
I've never been a huge believer in ghosts, but my brother's experience in my own house still gives me chills. Let me set the scene for you. My house is pretty old, built in the early 1900s. It has all those classic old house quirks. Creaky floors, drafty windows, and strange noises at night. I always just chalked it up to the house settling. My brother, Liam, on the other hand, has always been more sensitive to this stuff. So, a few years ago, Liam came to stay with me for a week while his apartment was being fumigated. I put him in the guest room at the end of the hall on the second floor. It's a nice room, but it's always felt a little off, colder than the rest of the house, with a strange, heavy quietness to it. The first couple of nights went by without any issue. Liam seemed fine, and we'd hang out, watch movies, and talk like we always do. I didn't think anything of it. Then, on the third night, things got weird. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. I assumed it was Liam going to the bathroom, so I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep. But the footsteps didn't stop. They just went back and forth from his door to mine over and over. The pace was slow, measured, and heavy. It sounded like someone was dragging their feet. After about 10 minutes of this, I got a little freaked out. I sat up in bed, listening. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I held my breath, waiting. Then, I heard a soft scratching sound on the wood. Not like an animal, but like a fingernail, just lightly tracing patterns on the door. My heart was pounding. I called out, "Liam, is that you? Are you okay?" There was no answer. Just silence. The scratching stopped. I slowly got out of bed, grabbed the heavy flashlight I keep on my nightstand, and crept towards the door. I flung it open, ready for whatever was on the other side. Nothing. The hallway was empty. The light from the moon cast long shadows, but there was no one there. I checked the guest room, and the door was closed. I knocked softly. "Liam?" I whispered. No response. I figured he must have been sleepwalking and gone back to bed, so I went back to my room, feeling shaken but trying to rationalize it. The next morning, Liam came downstairs looking pale and exhausted. He barely touched his breakfast. I asked him if he had slept okay. He just stared at his coffee for a moment before looking at me. He asked, "Did you hear that last night?" I told him I heard footsteps and asked if he was sleepwalking. He shook his head slowly. "That wasn't me," he said. "I was awake the whole time. I heard them too." My blood ran cold. He said he'd woken up feeling like someone was watching him. When he opened his eyes, he saw a dark figure standing in the corner of the room, just a tall, shadowy shape with no discernible features. He was completely frozen with fear. He said the figure just stood there for what felt like hours, not moving, not making a sound. Then it started to move. It glided across the room towards the door, not walking, but floating. It passed right through the closed door, and that's when he heard the footsteps in the hall, the same ones I heard. He said he just lay there, under the covers, listening to the footsteps and the scratching on my door, too terrified to move or make a sound. He didn't sleep for the rest of the night. After he told me this, I didn't know what to say. We both just sat there in silence. Liam packed his bags that morning and went to stay at a hotel for the rest of the week. He said he couldn't spend another night in that room. He's never stayed over at my house since. I've never seen the figure he described, but sometimes, late at night, I'll still hear those slow, dragging footsteps in the hall. And every time, I make sure my bedroom door is locked. Thanks for listening, and if you have any similar stories, share them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there.
Next story.
Tonight's story is one I can't stop thinking about. It comes from a listener, Daniel, and it's actually his wife's story. She's the one who saw it. He says she's never fully described it to him, and he stopped asking. Daniel is 46, a high school history teacher living in a suburb of Milwaukee. He and his wife, Carol, have been married for 19 years. He wanted me to be very clear about this. He is a skeptic. He doesn't believe in this kind of thing. He's telling this story because he can't explain it, and he's been trying to for 3 years. It all started with his sleep. He described it as a dense, heavy sleep. Not restful at all, quite the opposite. He'd wake up feeling like he hadn't slept, with this deep physical exhaustion that settled in his chest. Sometimes, he'd have a lingering feeling that something was happening while he was unconscious, something just beyond his memory. He mentioned it to his doctor. They did blood work, which came back normal. A sleep study was scheduled, but it hadn't happened yet. For the time being, he was just managing. Then came a Tuesday in November. Carol got up in the middle of the night for a glass of water. When she came back to the bedroom, she stopped in the doorway. She stood there for a moment. This is what she told him the next morning, very carefully, watching his face, and then she went to bed and said nothing. In the morning, she told him what she'd seen. Standing right next to his side of the bed, she said, was a shape. That's the only word she could use for it. A shape, dark, about the height of a person, standing over him and leaning slightly forward. She stood in the doorway, looking at it. It didn't move. She couldn't see any details at all, no face, no hands, no features. Just a dark shape, leaning over her sleeping husband. She couldn't say how long she stood there before she walked to her side of the bed and got in. She didn't turn on the light. She didn't go over to Daniel's side. She just got into her own side, lay down, and didn't look at his side of the room again. She doesn't know why she made those choices. She said it didn't feel like they were her choices to make. In the morning, everything was normal. Daniel was there, asking her what she wanted for breakfast. Let's all just take a breath for a second. I'd love to know where you're all listening from tonight. Leave it in the comments below. And if you're enjoying these stories and haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do it so you don't miss what's next. So Daniel asked her the obvious question, "Why didn't you wake me up?" She told him she didn't think she was supposed to. She said she doesn't know where that thought came from. It was just there, clear and absolute. She was not supposed to interfere. He asked her what she thought it was. She said she didn't know. Then he asked her if she was scared. She was quiet for a moment, Then she said, "Not of it." Of what it was doing? He asked what she thought it was doing. To this day, she has never answered that question to his satisfaction. The heavy sleep continued for another 6 weeks and then just stopped completely. He has no explanation for why it started or why it ended. His sleep study, when he finally had it, came back within the normal range. Carol has never seen the shape again, and Daniel, he has never seen it himself. The question that Daniel can't stop wrestling with isn't what that shape was. It's what Carol meant. Not scared of it. Scared of what it was doing. He's asked her to clarify, to explain. She just says she doesn't have the words. He says he thinks she does have the words. He thinks she just won't say them. And he's decided, after 3 years of this, that he's probably better off not pushing her for an answer. There's one more detail. Ever since that night, Carol sleeps facing away from his side of the bed. She has never said why. And he has never asked.
Next story.
Everyone in my family knew something was wrong with that house before I did. I was the last to find out, and I'm the one it happened to. This is Tanya, 38, works in hospital administration in a mid-sized city in Illinois. She bought the house after her divorce, needed a fresh start, wanted something that was hers, a 2-bedroom on a tree-lined street that felt manageable and safe and completely her own. Her kids visited on weekends. Her mother visited occasionally. Her sister came for a long weekend in the fall of 2022 and slept in the guest room and left a day early and didn't explain why, just said she hadn't slept well. Tanya didn't push it. Her daughter, who was 11, told her the following spring that she didn't like sleeping over anymore. When Tanya asked why, her daughter said the house felt like someone was watching. Tanya told her it was just an old house, that old houses feel like that sometimes. Her daughter nodded and didn't argue, but she started sleeping with the TV on whenever she stayed, and she angled herself so she could see the door from the bed. Tanya noticed none of this as pattern. Each thing was separate. Each thing was explainable. She was tired from the divorce, from the new job, from being alone in a house for the first time in 15 years. She was not sleeping well, but she attributed that to stress. She was waking in the night, but she attributed that to the house settling, to traffic outside, to the particular anxiety of a newly single person in a new space. She had explanations and she used them. The first night something happened was in October. She woke at 3 a.m. and the bed was shaking. Not violently, rhythmically, steadily, a vibration that was specifically the mattress and not the frame, not the floor, not anything external. She lay there and felt it and told herself something mechanical, something in the house systems, a pump or a unit. The shaking continued for approximately 1 minute and then stopped. She lay awake for a while, then she slept. There are more accounts like this one. Stay with me. 3 nights later, she woke to the breeze. Room sealed, windows locked, no vents near the bed, and a cold current of air moving across her face from left to right. Slow and deliberate, she raised her hand into it. It moved across her palm. She was not imagining it. She sat up and turned on the lamp and checked the window. Locked, closed, the street outside perfectly still. No movement in the trees. She stood in the room and felt the air, and it was ordinary air. Room temperature, still. She turned the lamp off and lay back down. The breeze did not return. The third thing happened a week later, and it was not a sound or a temperature or a vibration. It was a hand. She was lying on her right side, facing the wall, almost asleep, in that specific place between consciousness where the body gets heavy and the thoughts start to detach. And something grabbed her left ankle from beneath the covers. Not through the covers, under them. A hand, cold, firm, the specific unmistakable grip of fingers, and a palm closed around her ankle and pulled toward the foot of the bed. She did not scream. She has thought about that since. She has no explanation for why she didn't scream. She simply became completely still and let it happen and stared at the wall, and the grip held for a long time. She thinks 2 minutes she knows that seems long, she cannot explain it, and then it released. She got out of bed. She went to the living room. She sat on the couch with the lights on until the sun came up. She called her mother in the morning and tried to describe it, and her mother was quiet in a way that Tanya recognized as her mother knowing something she hadn't said yet. Tanya asked what it was. Her mother said that her sister had felt something grab her ankle the night she de-slept in the guest room, the night she'd left early. She hadn't said anything because she thought Tanya would think she was being dramatic. Her sister's guest room, her ankle, the same thing. The same house. Tanya moved out 4 months later. She does not know who lives there now. She has driven past it once since. The lights were on, someone was home, the street looked ordinary and fine. She didn't stop. The thing she keeps returning to, the question she carries, is the sequence. Her sister first, her daughter second, her third. Something in that house was working through the people she loved before it came for her, moving through them in order, getting closer. She was the last one, and she wonders sometimes, and this is the part she says very quietly, what would have happened if she de-stayed? Whether there was something else it was working toward. Whether she left before it finished, she doesn't know. She thinks that's probably for the best.